Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Irish Goodbye Business Podcast. Today, we are welcoming the newest member to the podcast trio now, which is Todd Klimkowski. You might know Todd from a previous interview we did with him. And like the Ron Seal guy, he liked us so much he bought the company. So, Todd, you've joined us now. Say hello.
Hey, everyone. Happy to be here. Looking forward to adding some value to the team on the great kind of just foundation that you guys have built. I think this has a lot of leg room to grow, and excited to be a part of it and bring some cool speakers in and get the most out of this. So thank you.
Brian, I think what Todd is saying is we weren't bringing this to its full potential.
Not at all.
It's very average.
And you all know Brian Pinnell's the other host. Brian, say hello.
Hello. Thank you.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Well, we're breaking protocol on the usual interview style process today. Today, the three of us are going to get together and have a quick chat on. Myself and Brian spent the last week in San Francisco at Dreamforce for Salesforce, and just want to discuss how beneficial or the pros and cons of these large corporate events. Like at Oracle, it was Dreamforce, at Salesforce. Or Oracle, it was Open World, at Salesforce is Dreamforce. I know Ring Central had something as well. I can't remember what it was called. But each company tends to have their own big event. And I really want to kind of break down from people who run massive accounts just to have an understanding of what this brings as value to you, to your clients, and also just the sheer logistics of getting all of your clients there, herding around like cats from event to event, making sure they attend the right sessions, making sure they get to the happy hours. And then just the lead up to it, the preparation, and then what comes from it, and is it ultimately worth it? So I'll throw that. So Brian, I'll throw that to you first, knowing you have a background in event management. So
I studied event management at university. So that was my degree, which I did at Leeds Metropolitan University. And when we were studying, we spent a lot of time looking at events. How you would manage, operate, monetize events. What are the logistical components involved? Have you got the appropriate safety, security, footfall, sizing, and all of those different dimensions? And I think it's important to make the determination around what kind of event a Dreamforce or a open world or AI world or whatever it might be is in relation to perhaps a normal event or something like a concert that people might be more familiar with. And if you think about the outcome of an event like that, where you're going to see a music singer or a rave or a DJ or whatever it might be, it's fairly straightforward. You have X amount of people, you sell X amount of tickets, and therefore, if you sold enough or more tickets than you needed to cover your costs, then it's broadly determined, I would say, as a successful event. You obviously have the immersive experience for the fans and so on. And I think for people that may not have attended something like this, it's a little bit more of a different immersion, in that it's an event that you come to really kind of immerse yourself in the product and the community and the people that are around that particular organization. So I think the value of it is perhaps a little different, and perhaps the actual way that you interact with the brand throughout that event or throughout that conference might be a little different. So I don't know if that's a helpful explanation there, Carl. Or
absolutely not.
No, I didn't think so.
No, it did dawn on me while we were there. There's like 100,000 plus people in these 3 or 4 buildings, and just the logistics of making sure there was enough lunches available for people, making sure there was EMTs on site, make it like on 2 occasions I saw people being rushed through in a wheelchair with paramedics with them. I don't know if that's because their proximity to me or what happened to them, but exactly. But even taking the logistics aside, like personally, like what I've been told in the past is these big conferences serve one great purpose, which is to help you close deals. I see it slightly differently. I think if you're going to these big conferences to close a deal, it's nearly a Hail Mary, because if you haven't got the deal in a position to close by the time this is happening, 3 minutes with an executive glad handing and saying that, they're very happy to meet with you isn't really going to move the needle. For me, it's really, really powerful for prospecting for next year. Here's a look at what's going to be on the roadmap. Here's a look at what the industry is thinking. Here's a look at what we're doing with our products. Starting those conversations and getting those into a position of empowerment within the client and getting them thinking about what the next project looks like. I don't know, Todd, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think there's all different levels, right? With people have different agendas on why they want to go, but it's a huge commitment, right? You got to, especially coming from New York, you got to fly, right, all the way to San Francisco,
which is
every hotel's $1,000, right? So there's
a night,
like, there's a big commitment. I think what Brian was getting to, which I agree with, right? I think it's more of the, like, all of the stuff that goes around on the preparation for it is going to make or break. Like, if you have a new person that comes in that's never been to Dreamforce and you drop them in the middle with 100,000 people, it's going to be a really shitty experience.
That's right.
If you do things like that Brian did, right, where you are setting up cool events and you're building the relationships and you're kind of guiding them to the things that they want to hear, not what you want to get across, I think that's the value that goes into the customer, right? And each customer and each role of that customer is going to have a totally different agenda. So for me, my thing that I spend the most time is just like preparing for all of this shit, right?
Yeah.
And when I speak to customers, so I spoke to a customer that spoke on the stage last night, and his biggest thing was like networking, like figuring out what other customers were doing, talking to people like Bank of America and speaking to like the biggest customers and figuring out like the good, the bad, and the ugly, and doing it in a social setting. Like, I think that's the power of it. To your point, for me, I never really go to these events to close a deal. I go more to build a relationship, show them that I'm preparing. I'm going to introduce them to the right people. Like, I'm not going to say, hey, come to this event so I can help, like, speak to this executive and we're going to close the deal. Like, that's just never really happened to me. So I frame on more of the side where you are. And then you have the personalization of it, right? Like, a couple of years ago, I was like, hey, you want to go to this event? The guy's like, no, I want to go have a drink. I'm like, well, don't got to tell me twice. Like, so, like, we went and had drinks because that's what he wanted to do. And at the bar, I introduced him to like 20 different people that I just randomly knew. Yeah. And that's the value of it, right? I think there's the whole concept of product and learning and innovation, right? You're going to get that tenfold, but then it's like, what's the next step, right? What are you going to do to make them feel important? What are you going to do to make them have fun and want to hang out with you and want to answer your calls and want to answer your emails, right? And I think that's kind of my takeaway from these big events.
One of the things that kind of stood out to me was meeting some of my clients and then meeting their leadership together and giving you the chance to, not in a rushed setting, but promote your contact to their own leadership, saying that we adore working with X, the work that they're doing is this, the partnership is incredible. And just giving them that chance to get that humble brag without having to say it themselves. And, the other, I agree 100% with you, getting the cross-pollination of one company to another. And you take Bank of America as an example, right? Bank of America might as well be 8 different companies. Each line of business is so different, right? So having private bank meet with consumer bank and talk about what they're both doing with our product sets is so powerful because it's an internal reference and it's not us beating our chest. It's them saying what they're achieving with our platforms. That was one of the key things for me.
Yeah, and Todd, I think you alluded to that with the networking. When I debriefed with one of my clients this morning, that was exactly what they said. Not just networking with other clients, but being able to cross-pollinate and network across their own internal lines of business. The way that I think about it is that the event is an immersion. It's an immersion in the culture of the company, the people, the network, the ecosystem, the product, and we go day to day from one meeting to the next. We might spend an hour with someone where we're trying to bring across a message, or they're trying to convey to us it's bi-directional, right? They might be trying to convey to us a particular challenge that they have, that they want a solution for us to try and solve. And then you go from that meeting to the next, and there's numerous different things happening throughout the course of the day. Whereas this is a complete sort of dedicated form of focus for a number of days, where you can, as you said, you can really get to know people, you can do really good networking, you can introduce them to different people to focus on that conversation or that problem or that challenge that they might have, without having the plethora of distractions that are presented to us day to day when we're meeting remotely or trying to do things asynchronously.
I think one of the areas you touched on, Todd, was about the preparation. But for me, what I've learned I've been at 3 Dreamforces now. I was at a couple of open worlds, but it's the preparation going in, but controlling all of the avenues coming out, because you end up with a lot of people who meet your client and go, I had a great meeting. I want to have a next meeting with them. I want to take them on a one-to-one. I want to do this. And it becomes, say, that product leader's focus, or becomes this individual's focus. And you're like, thank you, sir. We will have you involved in these conversations, but there's a greater strategy here to be working for 2.5 years. So you can't just come in and take it left.
It's a protect your client kind of thing, right? Like, and that comes from internally, that comes from executives, that comes from partners. Like, to your point, it has to be right place at the right time. Otherwise, the customer gets pissed and they get annoyed that all of a sudden they go to this event. Now they're they had one conversation for 10 minutes and they have 40 salespeople reaching out to them, and they're like, what the hell? So I think that's it. The other thing that I think that's worked for us on our team specifically, and we work on a really good team in insurance, is we do and this will be a little bit different than you, but I think you'll get the gist of it. We do team events. So what we do is our RVP has 8 AEs, and we get just our clients within those 8 in that group. And we'll do what you did, Brian, right? Where we do either a wine event and we'll have a partner kind of help sponsor it or whatever it is. That has worked really well for me because, especially for the life and annuity space, what we're doing specifically, similar challenges, different companies, but everyone's speaking the same language. It's a social event, no one's, not communicating. So that really works well. And the other thing that I actually enjoy, and I know we've spoken about this a lot, the 3 of us, is when you're planning these, working with your BDRs and working with your inside sales teams and working with your other teams, there's a lot of collaboration that goes into it. And there's a lot of learnings on how to do it the right way and how to do it the wrong way. Because if we all do it the right way and 90% do it the wrong way, it comes across as a shitty event. Right? Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is teach my team is guys, here's the way to do it. Here's the right things to do. Here's the wrong things to do. Right. And I actually enjoy that component of it too.
But I think you do. I think you do that more than just at events. That's something you do year round. I know it's something myself and Brian try and do is on the Bank of America team, there's 6 of us on the core of it, but there's probably a supporting cast of 20 or 30
at least.
So it's making sure that they all have a defined role, a defined purpose, and value within that, whether that's at something like Dreamforce or beyond, right? Because you're only going to get the best out of somebody if they feel included and valued. Now, whether that's at an event like Dreamforce, driving attendance, helping build out the agendas, helping build out the innovation meetings, or whatever it is, or just your day-to-day engagements. I think that's something, and obviously I've worked with you long enough, Todd, to know you do that year round. That isn't a sort of a conference specific engagement type.
Yeah, the 5 P's is proper planning prevents piss poor performance, right? So, and that goes into everything that we do, right? So you're absolutely right in that if you plan, you have to do a lot of planning for these events, and if you plan properly, you'll get a really good outcome. Your customer will feel like they were taken care of, they had a really good time, they met with the right people, they went to the right events, and they met the right stakeholders. But there is you cannot, you're absolutely spot on, you cannot just drop them into an event like that and be like, off you go, have fun. It will backfire. It's
overwhelming.
They won't know where to go, they won't know who to talk to. Sometimes the sign, and this was a bit of feedback that we got on on it this week was that the signage was a little bit questionable, so no one knew where to. Some people didn't know where to go or how to get there.
Like we do, like my first Dreamforce, right? You know, I've been to a million of these different events, whatever. And a lot of the people that are going to listen to this, they run their own events and, you know, whatever it is. You know, so what I do is I actually build out an agenda. I'll talk to the customer before I say, hey, what are 3 or 4 things you want to do? We'll build out an agenda. And I say, hey, guys, like, I don't give a shit if you use the agenda or not, but I'm going to have it at least for you to do. But one thing I didn't think of, to your point, is like I set up a meeting over here in Moscone West, and then I have like a 5-minute runway, and they got to go all the way to the other side. It's like a complete shit show. So it's like,
or if they want to go from a meeting to say a talk or you know, a keynote, it's going to take you 20 minutes to get into the keynote. So you can't have a meeting directly before.
Yeah, exactly. So like those are lessons learned, and it's fun. I mean, I think the other really interesting thing that I've seen just with customers is, you know, especially the ones you don't know when you get to meet, like you kind of have this vision of like who they are, right? Yeah. Like, oh, they're not social. They don't want to do this. And then they are like the person that are like, where the hell are we going? And it's like 2 a.m. and you look up and you're like, you know, hanging out with them. And the people that you think are going to be out all night, they're like, all right, I'm going to bed at 7. So I think that's an interesting dynamic because, you know, you want to put your people in the right place to succeed, right? You don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. You don't want to like over engineer it, but at the same time, you want to like extend that arm of like, hey, if you want to have beers after, or if you want to have drinks after, like a bunch of us are going to go. So I always find that really interesting is like, you know, you have the concert, the after the concert, or you have a dinner, the after the dinner, you know, like that's, I mean, Carl, like I've run into you probably, you know, multiple times in different places, like randomly.
2 a.m.
Yeah,
when all the events are done and you're at some random Regis bar.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, what clients may not realize, or what people who don't go to these events may not realize, is as the AE or the account executive manager, whatever you want to call it, you have to be out till the last drop, right?
And up first.
Yeah, and you have to be sitting there with coffee, welcoming them in first thing in the morning, like it's not hurting. And you still have to be.
There's a few mornings I woke up and I was like,
yeah. Oh yeah, your eyeballs are bouncing around the hotel room, right? You're trying to pick them up and put them back in.
I was saying to Brian, there was one night out there, I was fully sure I had a heart attack. It's just laying there. If I die tonight, it's fine. I'll have to get up tomorrow.
I saw a colleague of mine on the plane on the way home on Friday. And we were both absolutely exhausted, and I was like, how's it going? And he's like, I don't want to talk to you. And I was like, I don't want to talk to you either. See you later.
but that's the point I was going to make. Is right. So you're out till, say, even if you're lucky and you get 11 midnight each night, by night 4, you're looking at these people going like, I just want to go fucking home. like,
and I'm sure they're looking at us.
It's not that I don't appreciate your partnership, the business you bring us, the you know, how I'm getting to know you, but I don't like spending 4 nights around my family. I'm not going to do it with you. Like, so it's like the last night, like at 10 o'clock, I just called it. I was like, I'm done, made my excuses and went home. And I think it sort of started a chain reaction from what I understand, as everyone was within a half hour of me. But,
or it's the essence of the Irish goodbye, right? You just leave.
yes, 100%. But I do love what you said there, that there's always aspects where you think you have a read on somebody, and then by day 3, they're like a deviant in a bar, you know, just crushing pints, you know, just inserting themselves in conversations they have no, you know, right to be in, or just absolutely being a menace, and they're amazing.
I think that's for me. It's just kind of my selling style in the way that I approach, like that for me is the best part, right? Is building those personal connections. And, you know, a lot of the customers will give you a lot more than they are like through a video like this, right? And you, right, will give them a lot more of information on why you can do things and why you can't. And then there just becomes this level of trust of, you know, that's one of my favorite parts about it. And I think that's the part that gets overlooked a little bit. It's
or what you might learn is the bottlenecks within the company, right? They'll go, yeah, don't send that through Tom, he takes forever on everything, bring that to me, or bring that to Susan, or bring that to,
or have you spoken to Jill? No, well, dude, like Jill's, you got to speak to Jill. Like, who the hell is Jill, right? Like, I've never heard of Jill, or whoever that person is. So I think that that's a really critical thing. And I think it's also important that you you're sensitive to it and you don't abuse it. Like, you don't, like, to your point, right? I'm not like always in front of my customer. When my customer is talking to another customer, I walk away, right? Yeah. Just out of respect, so they feel comfortable to talk to them. I don't like immerse myself with them where now I'm like in their hip pocket all day, because then that's not fun either. So I think it's just this fine balance of putting them in a position of success, introducing them to people, showing them a great time, but also, like, not being their shadow for 3 or 4 days.
Well, I do think, so I'm coughing here. I do think you downplay what you do a little bit with that. You say, yeah, give them space. Oh, sorry. But you give them the space, but you have to be within eyeshot of being pulled back into the conversation the second they feel uncomfortable, or they're bored, or they're done with it. Like, so you're still on. You're just on 3 feet that way.
I mean, yeah. And you also have, like, everyone and their mother trying to get to these people, depending on what their role or what company they're with, right? And you want to kind of shield them as much as possible from them as well, because, like,
I fully understand what the life of an EA is like now. And you're going to people can see the list of people going to Dreamforce, go, I see you have these people from Bank of America. My account, tiny bank in nowhere, would love to meet them. And you're like, okay, but for what? Well, we don't know, just like general banking. Like, no, fuck no. Like, if you don't have a specific ask, not just introduce them for tell us what you're doing in terms of banking. Like, it's of zero value.
And usually I try to know, like, what they want to do and who they want to speak to. Do they want to speak to partners? Do they want to speak to these people, right? And what don't they want to do, right? I mean, I think that's almost just as important. It's like, what do you want to do and what don't you want to do, 100%. Right? So, I mean, I honestly think if you do this the right way, and I know that you do, I know that Brian does, especially with these wine events and things like that. Like, it makes the world of a difference.
That's expertise. Wine events.
Forget anything else.
People love it. I mean, last year we did this huge wine event, and it was everyone that came back, they said, like, that was the favorite thing, because we had 20 customers. There was only like 5 or 6 AEs, and they just got to hang out. We had a great time, and that was like the best thing, and that's where they shared information. They still stay in touch, so.
But what I love about those events is when you don't speak about business, ultimately the client will pull you aside and talk business to you, because whether it's guilt over having such a nice time or something, or whether it's just they need to get that conversation with you as well. But they will ultimately, if you don't raise business with them, they will ultimately come and find you to speak about it.
Well, that's funny you say that, because my rule of thumb, even when I do dinner, or I take like them to a concert, or I take them to a game or whatever, like, my rule of thumb is 98% personal, 2% business. And I never try to initiate the business. If they want to talk to me about the business, they'll speak to me. But if they're going to spend their personal time with me, I'm not going to, like, trap them over a dinner and wear them out over X, Y, Z. Like, I just don't think that's a good look. And I think, like, in my younger life, I would be so excited that a C-level person would go out to dinner with me and I talk business the whole time. And I'm like, God, that guy probably thought that was miserable, right? Like, it was like another meeting. Like, that guy's never going to fucking come out with me again.
Well, dinner with Todd's hard enough, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's been a big change, is just, to your point, like, they'll speak to you about the business when they want to. Like, you don't have to ram it down their throat.
It's a really, really important point that you're making there, Todd. And I think for, people, and as you rightly called out, is when you're like earlier in your career or slightly younger, you're like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Let's talk about the business. But it's the importance of those relationships, and it's that kind of customer connection. Going back to the importance of the event, you spend that much time with somebody, you really get to know them. You really get to build a relationship. You really get to know about their families and who they are and what they do and what they're interested in. And naturally that will form its way into a conversation about business at the appropriate time and you know, as and when it's ready. So you got to let the meeting breathe. But I do think that what you mentioned there about the ratio of like 98% discussion and then 2% business is a really, really good point. I think that's really valid to.
It's all about the 2% with Todd, the 2% edge.
Right? Yeah, that's what 2% across the board. But the other thing, though, I think that you just said, Brian, which I fully agree with, is when you get the personal stuff out of them, whether it's their kids, their birthdays, their trips that they like to do, or whatever, sports teams, whatever. Like, that's when I follow up with them on Christmas or Thanksgiving. Like, that's the stuff I'm talking to them, or I'm texting them about, right? So I'm learning about them on what's important to them, like more personally, and that's where I kind of lead my communication with them with. Because, like, listen, we talk business from the second we open our eyes to the second we close. Like, it gets monotonous. These people get tired. They have 1,000 of us trying to push and pull them in a million different directions. But if, like, you can come at it of a point of from empathy of like, hey, like, I know you said your kid was doing XYZ. How did it go? Rather than, hey, man, I sent you 4 emails, you know, like, where's the, you know, when's the next meeting? Like, you know, because then it seems disingenuous, like the 3 days that you spent with them, that it's only to get to the point where you can get, you know, further in your deal or get a deal started or wherever it is.
Well, that's what I said. What we do for a living is listening with integrity, right? Now, whether that's personal or professional, that's what it's about. You got to, you know, if you ask the question about the family, make a note of it. And to give you an example, it's clients of mine where his daughters play volleyball. So that's always the first question is how they doing in the scores. And it's not a formula to make him like me. It's because I'm genuinely interested. When I see the excitement in his eyes about how he talks about his daughters playing volleyball, it's a really nice conversation to have. And he tells you about them. And you're muted, Val.
You don't want to talk about business the whole time. That's what they do, right? They want to talk about other things as well. And that's where the level of trust comes.
Yep.
I feel like is when you can get to that, there's a level of trust comes, and then you just keep kind of building the foundation rather than just hammering them, you know, with product or hammering them with, oh, you got to meet this executive or that. Like, you know, they'll do it when they need to, you know?
Exactly. So if we're going to draw a line under this and we decide, are these conventions worth it? Brian, what's your take?
Without a doubt, they're an amazing way to build relationships with your client, get to know them, immerse them in the community, articulate the vision of the company and how their role and what you're talking about aligns to your own company and also to their company as well. So 100%. And I think, yeah, absolutely worth it. And I love Todd's point about, you know, proper planning. That's the key.
So Todd, do you follow that?
Yeah, I think for me, 100% yes, if done correctly. Right. And I'll give you an example. We were working on a deal that to what we've all kind of said, like, it's very hard to close a deal during that time. I think you can move deals forward, but to close, it makes it a little difficult. But like, I was in the beginning stages of a deal that I closed this year, and the person and the teams that I hung out with last year reaped the rewards for the deal this year.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're in strategic sales, like, these things just don't happen overnight, right? There's so much red tape that you have to go through. And like, if you're expecting to meet someone one time, have a great meeting and have them be interested, and you're going to close within 3 months, like, you're out of your mind. Like, it just doesn't work like that.
Myself and Brian were talking about this earlier. He was saying that he felt, you know, empathy for one of our teammates. They had spent a lot of calories on a particular project that we're trying to kind of move forward. And, you know, we were trying to find a way to help them out. And I was just saying, well, look, that's the difference between strategic and other selling. Like, strategic selling really is a multi-year sale. whether that's 18 months, 2 years, 2.5 years, depending on the size of it. And it's about having the patience. When some months that needle doesn't move, some months it drops back a 0.5 degree, and some months it leaps forward. But it's like playing poker. It's about having to stay in that pocket and really make sure that, all right, so this might have fallen off, but we're still making headway toward the main thing we're trying to do. And yeah, we mightn't get that deal done this January, but it's a really good June deal for next year. And you can't lose focus on that. That's part of this. And that ties back to why I think these conventions are totally worth it. One, there's two aspects that really sing out to me. One, I get lines of business speaking to other lines of business in a social setting or networks. And I think the most important thing you have, or two things you have, is your trust in your network, right? And you have your network speaking to each other, talking about A, B, and C and what they're trying to do. And in our case on the Bank of America, you have lines of business talking to lines of business and confirming that what the current deal you're in is a good idea.
Yeah. But
you're also building that roadmap and building that vision and building that prospecting muscle for next year and the year after, because they're seeing a glimpse to the future. And especially where we all work in regulated industries, they're never going to be the first to do a project because it has to go through security checks. But if they see what Louis Vuitton or what, I don't know, some Stop and Shop are doing with agentic use cases, and go, shit, well, why can't we have a scale back version of that? And it gives them something to aim for. And that's the power that I see of these things.
Yeah.
So I think if this was X Factor, they got 3 yeses that through to Hollywood, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a winner. I just think, again, it's just that preparation, man. Because I've had bad ones, right? Where I've went last minute, didn't plan, new customers, didn't know who they were, and it was a complete shit show, right? And then I've done it the right way where it's a home run. So I think that's the key takeaway that I think we're all in agreement on for that. And I think, the older you get, or the more of these that you've been to, like, what good is and what shit is,
I think you hit on it early. And I think if anybody watching this or listening to this is an AE or works in account support in any way, if your client is there, even if they got a free ticket, it's a huge amount of effort, time, and money has gone into it. So for them to be there, just for them to be there alone is worth the effort of you working out the agenda, working out the logistics, and they've taken a week away from their family. They've spent, as you said, $700-800 a night in a hotel, which is probably a rat trap any other time of the year. And they're there to spend time with you and with others. So just for that effort alone, you owe them the best experience that you can cultivate for them.
Yeah. I think the other piece of advice would be, obviously, if you're from out of town and going to San Francisco, don't stay in the Tenderloin.
No,
that's one. No. That's something I learned the hard way as well.
All right.
Excellent. Well, look, I think what we should do is every sort of 8 or 10 episodes, we should have a get together like this, discuss a topic, even if it's some of the topics of some of the guests that we've had on. But just finally,
and if there are topics that everyone wants to hear, shoot them our way, right? Like, if there's AEs or there's customers or whoever wants, is going through something and they need some help, or they want to pick our brain on how do we do this or what, like, throw those out to us too, because we'll bring those to the top of the chain and we'll bring experts in to speak about it, and then the three of us can always circle back too.
Excellent. And if you've made it this far, do the decent thing and subscribe, right? All right, gents. Well, look, thank you, Todd, Brian. Excited to have you with us moving forward. The Irish Goodbye is growing from strength to strength, and it's because of people like you. So thank you very much, and have a great day.
Cheers.
Right, Bye. Thank you.
Right,
Bye.
Cheers.